and welcome to another episode of Council Connections. This program is an opportunity for your elected officials to keep you up to date on the events, legislation, and initiatives that matter most. I'm Char Freedberg, and today I'm pleased to welcome back Council President Pro Tempore and Ward 1 Councilmember Adrian Simmons. Thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome. Good to be here.
Always good to have you here. So let's dive right into it. Many people are talking about activities for youth and programs to engage them in healthy ways, especially given the curfew executive order that Mayor Sidnor recently released. What are some healthy ways that the city supports, what are some ways the city supports people engaging in healthy activities throughout the summer?
Yeah, great question. And just to talk for a moment on the curfew, which was just released this week. So just so folks are aware, from June 18th to September 8th, there is a youth curfew in effect from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. the next morning, and that's 7 days a week. And after that time, folks should, 18 or under, shouldn't be out by themselves, essentially. Mm-hmm. The exceptions are, if they're with a parent or guardian, they might be coming back from an event that happens and they're proceeding directly home within an hour of that. And also if they happen to be working and that takes them home afterwards. So there's some common sense exceptions to that, but the gist is to be sure that kids aren't out and about without proper supervision that time of night.
All right.
But just to the question of sort of what things the city does to help support and engage youth programs, one of them is through our Parks and Rec, we maintain venues that people can host activities through. So whether that's the sports fields, whether that's the community centers we have, there's a number of organizations that avail of that. So whether it's, some examples would be Winning in Sports and Education, WISE, that offers programming. We also, the Little League, let's say doing, baseball in the field, CYO doing different sports, and a number of other organizations that work with youth but use the city's venues to offer those programs through. So look for those. As well, the Parks and Recreation Department has many of their own programs. So that could be things for smaller kids, like the bike parade or swim lessons over the summer. That's a great thing.
And I know that your kids loved the bike parade.
Yes. We were just there this week, and it was a lot of fun. The ice cream at the end is a nice little bonus, but always encourage folks to come out for that. And there's also the teen program. So we have like teen trips that go on over the course of the summer that you can sign your kids up for. Things like going to Sandy Point State Park, beach, things like going to Maryland Terrapins games, a lot of times even to different of the theme parks, amusement parks. So those are great programs Parks and Recs offers. Check out their website for that. And then thirdly, one thing I wanted to highlight that I don't think many people know about is our Youth Services Grant. And that's for nonprofit organizations that serve youth in the city. And it's up to $5,000. Wow. So yeah, if you have a program, and it's not cheap to put on these types of things. So if you have a program, maybe you need some new equipment, or maybe even you're thinking about doing a trip and would like some funding assistance, you can apply for that grant to help that program deliver its mission. And there's a little bit of paperwork, what's your mission, what's your IRS determination letter, a little basic finances. But there's two application windows that you can apply for the Youth Services Grant. January and February for an April grant date, and September and October for a December grant award date. So if you have one of those organizations or you're part of one, be sure you let those leadership know, because that's, again, another way that city sort of helps support programming going on for youth.
Speaking of youth, I know I mentioned your kids a little bit earlier. How many do you have? I
have 4 little ones, 8 and under. Well, the oldest one's about to turn 9, so 9 and under. Yeah.
Congratulations, happy almost birthday to them.
Thank you.
What are their favorite activities to do in the city?
Yeah, well, we just mentioned the bike parade, which is certainly a big one. The swim lessons too. Actually, the last couple of years, our younger ones have been able to participate in the swim lessons through the city pools. And that's a great way to introduce kids to the water, help them overcome some basic fears, get a little bit more comfort, and on the path to becoming a proficient swimmer. Mm-hmm. Some of the other ones, of course, are the festivals that we have throughout the summer. So I know Juneteenth is coming up. Mm-hmm. The City Hall in the park usually has some kids events as well. So yeah, I also like to mention the water park, a splash pad that's over near the library, Emancipation Park, from 12 to 2 is a fun sort of, if you're looking to cool off in the middle of the day. So those are some ideas.
Absolutely, especially given that like noon is one of those hotter times, especially in the summer.
Oh yeah, one more I'm going to throw in there too. Leo Wilson has new playground equipment. I've heard the slide is very fast, so you might want to check that out.
All right, you heard it here first. Bring your kiddos or any kiddos at heart to
Leo Wilson Park.
Leo Wilson Park. Okay, just wanted to make sure we had the name out for the record.
Yeah, fine.
So a big part of being on the council is evaluating and making decisions. I imagine everyone's process is unique, but how would you describe your approach to the task of weighing and arriving at decisions?
Yeah, great question. And council itself, part of our role is to work through, talk through, and then sort of make decisions at the end. And a couple of folks would say, hey, what does that look like practically? And so just to give a little insight to the behind the scenes on that, for me, step one is usually being sure to understand the question that we're starting with. And often it may not be a complete picture, or it might be something that I'm not as familiar about. Mm-hmm. So asking questions to try to fill in, hey, what is it we're even deciding to begin with, to be sure you understand it. Step two for me is really weighing pros and cons on multiple angles of the question. And that's important in my mind, to be able to sort of move around a particular issue and see it from different sides, to try to be able to really get your arms around it. And the third part that's connected to that is, listening to my colleagues, listening to residents and constituents, and listening to the subject matter experts within the city team to say, hey, how does this work? What's the pro, what's the con, what's the sort of trade-off or decision being made? I say that too from constituents as they follow our conversations, to sort of don't hesitate to sort of reach out, especially if you have a particular interest or an area. It's more often where a topic comes up and I happen to know somebody is specializes in that field or works in that field or has an interest in that field. I'll call them up and say, hey, we're looking at this, like, what's your take on it? Mm-hmm. Fourthly, for me, it's important to try to keep that question sort of hold loosely in your hand of a decision, because you don't need to make the decision to the end. So you want to hold it loosely throughout the process to allow it to evolve. And then finally, at the end, to sort of arrive at a decision. Last summer I was at a municipal leader conference, and there was a quote that really stuck with me from that. It says, hey, as municipal leaders make decisions, you really want to be applying a 10-year framework. What's going to serve the city 10 years from today the best in the decision we're making today? And sometimes that helps to sort of remove from the immediate situation and think long term. And from that, we can sort of layer success on success to propel our city forward.
Honestly, I love that thinking. And back in the day, speaking of propelling success forward, you were on several commissions to make sure the city's success was being propelled forward. Yeah. Do you miss being on any of those commissions? Or?
Yeah, and one of the neat things on council is, we do get appointed to different committees or commissions. Each one I'm a part of, usually for a 12-month window. I try to say, hey, what's one or two things that we can, improve, enhance, or elevate while we're there. So I was on the Historic Commission for a bit, and we looked at some of the Historic District Commission fees and also the information. How can we streamline that for people to become aware of it? Right now I'm on the Citizens Advisory Committee for senior residents and persons with disabilities. We're compiling resources for those two member groups to make it available. We're putting that on our website. Also on the clergy council right now. So you get to see a variety of different facets of the city. And to be honest, it's quite inspiring, because you're seeing different people who are really pulling together on these different facets, like the Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee, who have been working on the bike lane for Cherry Lane and things like that. So it's actually very encouraging. And not any one person maybe not see as much of the picture, but it's certainly encouraging from this vantage point to see so many good people around town stepping up, being part of the conversation, and helping the city grow. Absolutely.
So I hear you're soliciting input from the community on a question. What are you asking them about?
Yeah, actually, a good point. I guess that even ties into what we were just talking about. So
exactly.
A couple folks or I should say actually more than a couple, have stepped up to me with some ideas for the city. So I really have been sort of saying, hey, thinking big picture for this city, what are some ideas that folks may have that help elevate the town? So one example is a resident came up to me maybe about a month or two ago, and she said, hey, she had been over in Gaithersburg, and they have a larger park there, and there's a couple food vendors and retailers around the park. So it makes it a little bit of a destination for folks to spend time at the park, maybe get some food, get some ice ice cream, and she said, oh, I wonder if Goodey Park could be adapted in some way to have some just natural, retail type things facing the park. And I said, hey, that's sort of a cool idea. Another one I was talking to a few weeks back reminded me, Riverfront Park is a great feature of our city, sort of that walking, biking path along the Patuxent River. You may notice at one end, sort of near the pool, there's a bridge that used to be there. Mm-hmm. That bridge goes across to Howard County to Highland Park, High Ridge Park. And part of the vision was to say, hey, we could extend that sort of natural scape even into Howard County. And so maybe an idea would be to rebuild that bridge and create a natural flow into the park that's on the other side. Wouldn't that be cool? Or even at the other end of Riverfront Park, being able to go underneath the bridge into Anne Arundel, and you can create a circuit. The idea is to then create a circuit of ability to travel, through both Anne Arundel, Howard, and Laurel as part of a broader, creating a really neat, again, destination there. So anyways, the two ideas that folks have mentioned, but I know there are more ideas out there that are sort of big picture ones that sort of helps distinguish Laurel, helps really make it a great place to live. So I want to encourage folks to reach out with those ideas because I'm logging them, and we'll hope to be able to synthesize them into some additional conversation.
Going off of that, and thank you for mentioning my home city. I've lived in Gaithersburg for a while,
yeah.
But going off of what you were saying, people should get in contact with you. What is the best way for them to reach out to you?
Yeah, one of probably the best place to start for me is my website, which is adrianforlaurel.org. So it's Adrian, F-O-R, for laurel.org. And one of the things on there I do is a weekly city update e-letter. So if folks want to be getting some updates, I always put on whatever our agenda is, so they want to track sort of the decisions being made. Mm-hmm. I always like to also promote different neat events that are going on around town and sort of give them, so you can sort of keep track of those types of things. So visiting that website is a good way to track what I'm doing. Also, my contact information is there. So the city email is asimmons@laurel.md.us. Our phone number here, 301-725-5300, and you can ask for the council office. And of course, I've got my Facebook page and Instagram, etc. So, but starting there is adrianforlaurel.org is really a launching point for everything, and it really is helpful to hear from residents sort of where their thoughts are, and even just questions and how we can help them.
Absolutely, and going to cityoflaurel.org or calling the phone number, once again, that's 301-725-5300. If you call that number, the front desk receptionist is able to connect you with any department that you need, whether it's Parks and Recreation, for finding activities for your kids, or anything in between. We're always able to help.
Absolutely.
So Council President Pro Tempore Adrian Simmons, thank you once again for coming today.
You're welcome.
For sharing all your thoughts.
Glad to be here.
Always super happy to have you here. And thank you for tuning in to this episode of Council Connections. I'm Char Freedberg, and I'll see you next time.